The talk of the town is AI's impact on jobs. This is really kind of breaking containment here. And a big reason for that is that we just had a report this week that Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei went and told Axios that half of all entry level white collar roles could disappear within 5 years thanks to AI. And not just disappear, but basically he thinks vanish at some point overnight. He says CEOs will quietly stop hiring and start replacing humans with AI agents the moment it makes business sense. And in his estimate, unemployment could spike to 10 to 20% as a result. And yet, he says few leaders are warning the public. Congress is largely uninformed or unwilling to talk about this. And the White House is very quiet, not about AI, but about the possibility of job disruption. Not to mention, many workers who are kind of outside the AI bubble seem to be pretty unaware that this could be happening. So Amadei, who is of course helped building this technology, says companies have a duty to be honest about what's coming, which is, I guess, why he decided to talk to Axios about this in a very frank way. However, even so, the contradiction is a bit jarring. In just a couple weeks ago, we got Claude 4, which exhibits very powerful capabilities in white collar work like writing code or doing summarization of legal documents. So, Paul, maybe walk us through kind of what's going on here. Amadei is building this stuff, but also saying that it could have this monumental negative impact on entry level work. It's not the only warning we're getting right now. There's two leaders at LinkedIn, their head of economics in the Americas and their chief economic opportunity officer. Both of them published recent articles about AI's threat to entry level jobs specifically. What do we need to be paying attention to here?
So as I was saying kind of at the open, I do feel like this, for whatever reason, him saying this just sort of caught the attention of everyone, mainly in the mainstream media. I put this on LinkedIn. So we're recording this on Monday, June 2nd. This will drop on Tuesday, June 3rd. So I put this on LinkedIn 5 days ago. So it would have been like Wednesday or something, I think, when this came out. A normal LinkedIn post for me will get 5 to 10,000 impressions. As of this morning, this post is at 151,000 impressions.
Wow.
So, and like the comments within the thread are super productive. Like I was actually really impressed that people were being very level headed and having some disagreements, but really good dialogue. So there's, I don't know how many comments there were, 276 comments and 71 reposts. And so this is far beyond the usual like AI bubble of like my close network of people that always talk about AI. This superseded that. This was a lot of people that I don't usually see in the comment threads posting thoughts and questions and concerns. So it just feels that for some reason him saying this just sort of moved the dialogue forward, which I see as a very positive thing. Obviously on this show for a long time now, we've been kind of pushing this as something that needed to be talked about way more. When I saw it, I'll come back to this research, but I like immediately went and like ran a deep research project to try and see what was going on. If these things he was saying were actually starting to happen, because my personal theory, my hypothesis is that we will start to see data emerge through the summer and into the fall that shows AI is having a clear impact on jobs, that the quiet AI layoffs we've been talking about are going to start to compound and become more obvious what's actually happening. And I think that this will get accelerated because next generation models are coming. We will get GPT-5 at some point, likely this summer, I'm assuming, or early into the fall. We'll get Gemini 3 at some point this year. Elon Musk is hyping up the next version of Grok, which I assume is going to be Grok 4. So these new models are going to emerge. They're going to start to accelerate the impact across different industries. As we discussed in episode 149, you can look at the total addressable market by salary of professions, and you can actually start to get a gauge of where the investments are going to go. And then my hypothesis continues into next year, and I think that that's when we start to really see the disruption. So I think the class of 2025 is going to face some different challenges in terms of these entry-level jobs. I think by the time the class of 2026 emerges in May of 2026, it's going to be a full-blown, I don't want to say crisis, but like is going to be top of mind and core to economic discussions. What we have to keep in mind is May of 2026 is right in the midst of the start of midterm elections in the United States. So for any international listeners we may have who aren't familiar with how the U.S. government works, U.S. Congress is the legislative branch of the government. It's composed of the two chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Congressional elections determine representatives from the states in the federal government, and then which political party will hold majority in each chamber for the next 2 years. Congressional elections happen every 2 years. At that time, 1/3 of the Senate and every seat in the House is up for re-election. And so the midterm elections will take place November of 2026. So I think that this becomes a major topic for the midterms. And as Mike, you and I talked about for this presidential election cycle in 2024 in the United States, it was not discussed at all. Like we just kept saying, where's the conversation about AI? And then as soon as the new administration came in, day one, it was now a topic. So I think that it's still largely being ignored, but I don't think that that's going to sustain for long. And I can just like qualitatively, again, in the last week, I've been at multiple functions with family and friends where I have parents of high school and college age kids asking me unprompted, like, what should we be doing? What my son's majoring in computer science, is that viable? They're thinking about going to business. What should they like? You're now getting these way more educated questions about the impact this stuff is going to have. And so I think that that's started to cross over. And then if the economy keeps struggling, if tariffs and inflation continue to happen, and then you layer in an unanticipated unemployment number, or the bigger concern I actually honestly have right now, and I haven't had a chance to dig into this data deeply, is underemployment. So if you're not familiar with the concept of underemployment, that's when someone is working at a job that doesn't fully utilize their skills, education, or experience. So maybe they're working part-time and they actually want full-time employment, or they're taking a job at a retail store when they came out with a computer science degree. So it doesn't show up in the unemployment numbers because they are employed, but they can't get the job that they want, or they can't get the full employment that they want. And so my guess is that's going to start to be a much bigger issue going into next year as well. And so I don't know. I just feel like we may have hit that tipping point where this really starts to become a concern for people. They start taking a far greater interest in it. And if constituents across the United States start taking a greater interest, then their Congress and Senate have to start taking a greater interest. And if jobs truly start being impacted, unemployment and underemployment going into the 2026 election cycle, it has to then become a major political issue. And I don't know what that means yet. Like I think, and I do think, I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, I think the church is going to get involved. I fully anticipate. I actually saw something this morning about a sect of the church that sent a letter. I think it might have been to the Pope. No, actually it was to the Trump administration, basically vocalizing that they want to slow AI down.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's gonna cross over into a true societal issue very soon, and that could go a couple different ways.
So we've talked about before that we need to have the conversation around AI's impact on jobs. Part of Amodei's thing, whether you agree with it or not, was him kind of saying we need to be a lot more frank about this. Axios published a great follow-up piece about leadership in the age of AI and what they're doing as a company, and how they are having more frank conversations with their own employees about what AI could do and how they're going to move forward. But a lot of this is just people still saying, like, let's talk more about it, which is great. But I guess the question that follows is, what should we actually do about it?
Yeah, I think individually we have to start looking at our own industries, looking at our own companies, being more proactive, thinking about think about our kids, what their schools are teaching, and if you need to take on more responsibility to prepare your kids, which again is like, I'm lucky. My wife and I are lucky. Our kids go to an incredible school, but even they're not teaching AI. They're
Right.
not allowing it, but they're not teaching it. And so I'm very much looking at this like, how do I be proactive and actually preparing, our kids? I was at a friend's house last night having a conversation. Um, you know, his nephew is in, I think he's in his freshman year, maybe sophomore year. And it's just like straight up having this conversation. We're like, okay, like what's the career path look like? What are the majors you're interested in? How would
Mm.
you layer AI over those things? So I think it's a mix of being proactive individually, and then like as a community starting to focus on like more of what we can do.